Hi, I'm Patrick. I play guitar at Antirope, and I'm also the producer of the album Amnesia, which was produced in this studio, Studio 6.0. I started with a studio in the 90s. It was called Langfull Studios, and we were recording on tape back in the days. And I loved that style of producing, to produce on tape, because you really had to be focused on the perfect track. So it was not like today where you make a lot of tracks on hard disk recording and then you choose the best one. So you really the band had to be prepared, had to work with the producer to get the maximum out, the best groove and drive, and it was very different. So I think Antirope is a band, the songs are very emotional. So it's a band that needs to capture the original sound, the sound of the practice room, of the live performance. And so I absolutely wanted to record the album live. So no track-by-track recording, how you normally do it, where you first record the drums, then you add the bass, then you add the guitars, and then you add the vocals. So we did a live recording of all instruments. So drums, bass, and both guitars in this room. And everybody was playing together. This is how you capture the real sound of the band. Of course, you have to prepare the band. You practice a lot to get on the point where you really know how to play your songs, yeah, and where you have the right feeling to play your songs. And the whole recording was done in 1.5 days. My favorite bands released their records in the 80s and the 90s, like, say, Metallica, Master of Puppets, Slayer, Rain and Blood, but even also Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. These records had a real... It sounded so... It was real. Yeah, there was no fake, there was no hard disk recording. So when I listen to the modern metal, I don't feel anything. I don't want to say that modern metal is not good. It is. But for my personal taste, it's too perfect, or for my taste as a producer. Everything is very perfect. So perfection isn't real, because there's no perfection in the world. We are all not perfect. So this is why I really prefer the metal of the 80s and the 90s, where perfection was not possible because you were recording on tape. And this is exactly what I wanted for Antirope. I wanted to have the production like in the 80s and the 90s, not perfect, but with a lot of emotions. And normally if you record an album live, you listen to the tracks and you make some corrections. So if somebody played a wrong chord or something, you just replay exactly this part and that's it. But we didn't do that. And honestly, there is a mistake. There's a wrong chord on the album. And if you find it out, you get a t-shirt for free. So the first 3 people who find out where the wrong chord is, they get a t-shirt for free. But why didn't we change this? Because it sounds good. So it's not wrong that it sounds wrong, but it's wrong because normally it should be another chord. But we didn't care. We just kept it. It would have been like 2 minutes to change it, but why should we change something if it was catched in a good moment and at the end it sounds good? It's not like it sounds like, oh, there's something wrong, but it is. Okay, and but what we did additional overdubs, of course, like solos and like third, fourth guitars, not a lot. So in the verse, normally in the verse I'm playing the guitar and Slaven is singing. So on most of the verse live, there's only one guitar. So normally in the studio you double this guitar to have a stereo picture, but we didn't do that. I just kept it to keep it real, to keep it raw. I don't hear something like this often. So the normal production process is, of course, that you make a second guitar on it to just let it sound fat, more fat. But I think then it would be too polished. It wouldn't be Antirope, because Antirope sounds this way. So Slaven stops in the verse, he's singing, and my guitar is playing. My guitar is a very like this muddy sound. So the guitar is not so really like in your face in the verses. So I wanted to keep exactly this style on the record, so we didn't do that. So where did we add some additional guitars at the end, like Utopia? Utopia, you have a long end, and of course there's some. So long at the end is going more. There's guitars and melodies and feedbacks coming in. So I think this was good for the picture. But there's also like songs like "Is This the End?" where you get a really extreme ending, like a little bit similar to the Utopia ending, but we didn't add. I think I just add one more rhythm guitar on it, but not like Utopia where there's many guitars. So I would say like 80%, or even more, or like 90% is really, really like the drums, the bass, two guitars, so no overdubs. Sometimes there's a solo overdub, and sometimes there's additional guitars, but not often. We recorded without triggers or anything, so the drum sound you hear is real. We recorded the drum sound with, I think it was 11 microphones. So we had, of course, the classical microphones like bass drum, two snare drum mics, three tom overheads, hi-hat, and a room microphone, but the room microphone in mono. To get a little bit dirt in the drum sound and a little bit more of the ambience of the room. The guitar, I bought a Mesa Boogie rectifier in the 90s. It was the first batch of the Mesa Boogie rectifier. So this one was, I think, very special. When I heard it back in the days, I was like, oh my God, I never heard such an amp in my life. I'm playing on the record and also live I'm playing a Kemper amp, but I made a profile of exactly this rectifier. So this rectifier is here in the studio. It will always be there. The sound is there. But I was profiling. It took me a long time because when you profile, you get the AB, the real amp, and then the Kemper. And I made the profile as long as I really couldn't really hear the difference. And I was saying, yeah, this one sounds better. And it was the Kemper. So I profiled so long that it was at least the same sound as my rectifier. And same for Slaven. We did a profile with the same amp, but a different sound with Slaven because we have a very, very different sound. What was a challenge by mixing, because I'm playing humbucker guitars with octaver, so there's monophonic octaver, but I'm still playing chords, so normally you shouldn't do that. But I just like the sound, even if it's wrong. And Slaven is exactly the opposite. He's playing with less distortion. He's playing with a single coil with a Fender guitar. And sometimes it's yeah, our guitar sounds are very, very different. But of course, my job is then to make it sound like one band. And I think I think this mixture of this broken, muddy humbucker guitar of mine and with this clear, a little bit 70s sound like, but also a little bit broken from Slaven. Together, every guitar gives what the other guitar doesn't have. So it's, I think, together it's something what works very well. And the bass was recorded very simple through the output of the amp. We made the vocals later with the Neumann U87. So we made the vocals in 4 evenings. It was very, very quick. Normally, I take much more time to record vocals on a record. But I don't know, Slaven and me, we were in a vibe where everything was really like, we had fun. And I think that's very important if you make music. It shouldn't be work. It should be exactly the opposite. You come from work and then you're like, yeah, let's do music. And it was a little bit, Slaven and me, we were tired, but as soon as we hit the studio and we started the vocal recordings, we were not tired anymore because it went out so well. To get this drum sound, it was very important to me having the API preamps. I'm really driving them far, so they're always in the red level. I don't look at the levels, I just listen to it, and when I see, oh, now it sounds special, it's fine. Then I went into the into the mixer, and I make the EQ directly, because we fix it and the mix doesn't work. So I think it's very important, if you produce, or if you want that sound, that drum sound, that you know exactly how it should sound like, that you make the EQ so what you record is exactly the picture of what you want to hear at the end. So then in the mix you can adjust it, of course you do it, you compress it, but the character, the style of the drums is made while recording. And the vocals, we also used the APIS preamp for the vocals, and I drove it very, very hard. And then I compressed it with a Vertigo VST2, so no plug-in, real gear. And I have a custom-made low cut. You don't see the frequency, but you just listen to it. And I think low cut is... If you have a good microphone like the Neumann U87, and you have a good compressor and a good singer, you don't need an EQ at the recording, but you need the low cut. It was very important for me that producing this record doesn't feel like work. I started the mix on a laptop, so I use a lot of Plugin Alliance plugins. I have Sonox plugins and all these, a lot of plugins, I don't know, lots of plugins. Nowadays they're so good, much better than 10 years before. So I could set up my mix in a place where I wanted to be. So I started on holiday. So I was on holiday, nice weather, sitting outside on a pool, starting the mix. So and of course on holiday I don't have my studio with me, but I have the Neumann NDH30. These are amazing headphones, because the membrane doesn't go like this to your ears. It goes like this, so like speakers. So it's very, very, very similar than working on speakers. It's really crazy. If you would have told me 10 years ago that you can mix with a headphone, I would have said no, it will never be possible. But it is. So it was nice to start the mix in such a wonderful mood. So it helped. You're looking outside, you're seeing the birds, you're mixing, you're getting ideas how it sounds. And of course then I went into the studio and made the corrections, but there was not a lot to do. It was really, it's really, of course you have to mix and master on speakers, but the combination of the speakers and these Neumann NDH30 is really great, because you don't change a lot. You set up your mix, you set up your mood, your compression, your reverbs, and then you listen to it on speakers, and it works directly. So this was very surprising. But of course you do some little corrections on speakers, then you listen again on headphones. I just took my time. I didn't say I have 3 weeks now and it has to be finished. No, we just did it. And then I sent the mixes to the band, and we made some corrections. So it was really different mixing that I was used to do it before, because before, of course, I was here in the studio. I was mixing like eight hours a day, and every day, and so it feels more like work than if you start your mix on a laptop in a wonderful, on a countryside, and watching the birds. The mastering. Normally, you should never master the album that you mixed. But in this case, I just did it. I don't know why. Maybe we should have... We could have gave it to another mastering studio, but it was more like you make the mix and then you have an idea how the final product sounds. So I always started the mastering at the same time of the mix a little bit, and wanted to send the tracks, the mixed tracks, to the band already mastered, so they have a better idea of how it will sound at the end. Because the mastering, of course, makes a difference. The dynamics are different. You don't have the same drum peaks, and you used to listen to finished music. It's ready. It's, radio, CDs, streaming. It's always mastered. So I think the band gets the better picture if it's already mastered.